Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. Um, I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology as I do every week. I had intended to put some more videos up last week, but life got in the way. Still working on getting my camera working properly. I apologize for that, but it'll be up soon. The other thing I want to talk about is please, if you like this channel on YouTube, please press the like button and subscribe. I need to get the goal for pretty much every YouTube channel is again to further the coverage, not only for monetary reasons, but just basically to give you good information. And I think modestly, I provide good information on Vedic astrology. So I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology. I'm here to talk to you about what's happening in the world. And without further delay and with eyes clenched and fists blazing, let's get into it. Um, so basically, I just want to talk uh, a little bit about the year of um, the water rabbit just up front, and also about uh, the comet, which will be visible on February 2nd, the green comet, which will be visible on February 2nd. Now, green comets, so let's start with the green comet. Green comets by themselves are not necessarily a rarity. They're they they've actually occurred several times before in our recent history. They're not they're not all that unusual. What does make this one unusual is the frequency with which it's seen in the United in by the world. So this one was last seen 50,000 years ago. It won't be seen again for another 2 million years, I believe. So this is a relatively rare event. Um, the Indian astronomers and um, astrologers do tend to put a lot of weight on comets. They do portend unexpected events. I think given the location of um, this particular comet, it'll give a rather sudden change and this is my list of candidates in military circumstances. It will give us rather sudden change in governments, and it will give a rather sudden change in um, basically because it's in roughly in the Scorpio Sagittarius range. It'll also give some changes and some exposure to um, intelligence agencies. So let's say if an intelligence agency has been involved in any questionable activity, and that doesn't just apply to the United States, but any behind the scenes activity, it's going to come out. It's going to come out really, really strongly. Uh, we're already seeing some signs of that right now, but I think it's really given the fact this is coming so close to what I have as the United States rising sign, and also it's going to be hitting certain um, key positions in uh, places around the world, like oh gosh, like let's say a lot of the um, economic European Union blocks are have mutable rising signs. It'll cause changes and disruptions in partnerships, economies, things like that. So I think we should be prepared to see some kind of economic alterations over the next year. It hits China's uh, fifth house, I believe, and so that'll have some effect on the children. It'll have some effect on on workers and productivity in that country. Uh, it'll affect the entire world in both subtle and gross ways. Now, I'm really not one of these people who says that there's going to be a massive change coming because of some astronomical event. I've noticed through the years, and I've been reading James Braha's book lately. I'll give a free plug to James, the Graha Sutras. That a lot of the major planetary significations, even things like 9/11 and the pandemic, show us sort of easing into old patterns again. It's not so a lot of the patterns we have, so they'll create permanent changes. That is, essentially a lot of countries have became more heavily surveilled after 2001, and a lot of the a lot of powers around the world became more regulatory in terms of health after the start of the COVID pandemic. But you can see, at least I can see, that was a swing. Is starting to try to swing back to normal, or some semblance of normality, and that's the so disruptions usually don't change things. They usually don't have a permanent effect on the way people act. Certain aspects of our personality, like self-preservation, greed, for lack of a better term, the movement of progress towards civil rights and equal representation for all groups, those never entirely go away. It's just the parameters in which we move tend to get a little bit more defined, or a little bit more fought over. They cause disruption, but basically we end up living our lives pretty much. We have universal needs of security, food, shelter, some profit, some measure of enjoyment in our lives, some way to relieve stress. And those things tend to stay in place. So we're really not talking about a major societal breakdown or the dawning of a new age. All these things happen rather slowly. Even I'm a huge history buff, and I was looking at the decline of civilizations over the past few weeks, and civilizations usually don't just collapse. There's a long sequence of events which cause them to essentially decay and move away from prominence, or from dominance. It's really quite rare, unless you have, let's say, so even a 200-year epic, like 200, like the Mongols, essentially they don't all of a sudden come into power, and then like 10 years later they decline in power. Even the Alexandrian conquest didn't all of a sudden come up, and then there was no influence left from Alexander. Okay, so I think all these things imprint changes on us, where they imprint the way we affect our lives, but they don't really permanently change the need for shelter. We all need places to live. We all need food to eat. We all need some kind of way to vent, and we all need something new to learn. As human beings, we need some new stimulus or some new activity to keep us interested in life. Otherwise, you know, that's when a stagnation occurs, to be honest. So in some ways, these challenges are a way of helping us grow and mature. They're not really um, bad things. And I think one of the things is this sort of like ties in actually pretty strongly with the year of the rabbit. The year of the rabbit in Chinese astrology is um, a year of adaptation. There's a desire for calm. Um, I can remember back to uh, previous years of the rabbit, and I've spoken about this before. Previous years of the rabbit are tend to be um, times when societies usually change and usually try to calm down. You know, they don't always succeed, but they try to calm down. So I can think of, you know, like a typical rabbit year is 1975. You know, so that was essentially um, just after Nixon left office in the United States. It was when Europe was getting used to energy shocks. It was when and there was an attempt in Europe and around the world to adjust to inflate an energy problem. So it introduces new innovations, but it tries to do it rather slowly. And I do remember years of the rabbits tend to be economically a little bit tough, but sometimes people tend to um, change their minds rather quickly about things. The rabbit is also in Indian and Chinese thought. You know, so in the West we have this concept of the man and the moon. Um, in Chinese thought, I was just reading this, and it triggered a memory in me that essentially in Indian and Chinese thought, it, they don't see a man in them as we do in the West. They see a hare or a rabbit in the moon, and essentially the rabbit is the only one in the Chinese zodiac which is allowed to um, be part of the mansion of the lunar goddess. So essentially, this will introduce, so it'll be what I would call mild change, maybe even a step back economically, aggressively, sort of a dissolving year, is how I would call it. So essentially, it prepares a shift in anticipation of the year of the dragon, which is going to be like, we need change, we need new things coming in, we need somebody to take over. And I think that's one of the things you're going to see. So be prepared, put on your change shoes, be prepared for people trying to be a little bit, trying to force change either aggressively or calmly. And I think you'll be prepared for this rabbit year better than people saying, "Oh, it's going to be a comfortable year." It's really not going to be a comfortable year. Okay, so that I want to disavow that notion. I think we are seeing some signs, especially given the fact that this comet is coming really close to the president's rising sign, to Donald Trump's moon sign, that there are going to be big changes in the lives of these two individuals. Okay, so that doesn't mean that President Biden is going to leave office. It doesn't mean Donald Trump's going to go to jail, but there'll be changes, there'll be shifts. And I think, and some of them will be favorable, some of them will be unfavorable. Okay, so I think that it's going to be an interesting year to look. If I go out on a limb, because I'm not seeing any indications in Trump's chart of imprisonment. Okay, so I'm just going to go. I'm just going to put that right on the table. I am seeing signs of essentially what I would call wavering support. So his dominance will ebb and fall over the next year or so. In Joe Biden's chart, Joe Biden's in a much more I want to say dangerous, much more vulnerable period because he's and I think I said before, he's much more prone to scandal. He's much more prone to losing face or losing credibility. Um, and I think we're already seeing signs of that. So, again, I think, and as I said, I also think we're going to see not only in the United States but across the world indications that we have some changes in intelligence agencies. This was particularly true in or some indication of so for those of you old enough to remember, this was the year that the United States is essentially just pulled back and said we're in '74 the United States basically withdrew from Vietnam or shortly thereafter, and it also pulled off a lot of the attacks. It sort of stopped fighting among itself for just a little while. But there was a great deal of instability, a great deal of uncertainty. And I think one of the things we are going to see is, again, like I said, a lot more exposure to secrets that have been kept, but they'll be sort of soft pedaled. And so it's going to be an interesting year. Economically, I would watch out very carefully for late April, as I've said before, and especially into June and in November. I think you'll see political alliances changing a great deal in November. Okay, not only in the United States but across the world. Okay, so it's going to be an interesting year. Saturn's in Aquarius in Vedic astrology. That will give more discipline to people. It will give more people more technological innovations in order to improve their lives. And but also Jupiter and Rahu conjunction. I think we're also going to see a lot of folks getting very spiritual, but there's a real tendency to follow, to essentially escape into spirituality. And I'm not really in favor of that. I think I like spirituality, but I don't like it used as an escape from responsibility or from um, or from uh, real world circumstances. That kind of bothers me. And so that's one of the things that I'm kind of cautioning about. I think Jupiter's a great planet. It does wonderful things, but if it's in Aries, we'll be looking for with Rahu, we'll be looking for false leaders. And I think it forms in Indian astrology this combination called Raj Yoga, which is a special combination of planets. And Rahu and Jupiter in Aries will expose a lot of secrets. That's one of the positive things it does. but and so that'll be very good, especially after I think um, March or so, you'll start to see certain things come out, legal things come out, which will be exposed. And I honestly don't know who they're going to benefit. But the major thing is you'll see a lot of secrets or a lot of underhanded stuff that's gone on through the years. That'll be exposed for about a good 10 to 11 months. And then you'll see some economic panic, I think, between April and November, and some shifting political alliances towards the end of the year. So that's the general scope. So let's look at if we look at the overall chart, and we're going to look at this just in general terms. Right now, for this week, Jupiter, at the time I was talking to you, Jupiter's in the first house. Saturn's not aspecting Jupiter anymore, so you can rest assured that what I'm telling you isn't twisted or destroyed by Saturn's aspect on Jupiter. I'm talking to you during a new moon, so this does anticipate new beginnings. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are interested in following some of the rules of Chinese astrology, either give donations or visit your parents graves or your ancestors' graves around 5 days towards the end of the week this week, because that's considered to be a very good time. 5 to 6 days towards the end of this week, that's considered to be a very good time to get the blessings of your ancestors. So leave something, if they're still alive, do something nice for them. If they passed on, visit the graves, leave some flowers or do something in their memory. Okay, something nice. And that gives the blessings to the ancestors. So right now we have a Sun-Moon conjunction in Capricorn. Saturn and Venus are in Aquarius. So that's actually a good indication for Venus. Excuse me. So this gives more financial gains through hard work. And Jupiter's in Pisces. So Jupiter in Pisces will tend to give more knowledge or more access to knowledge. Less hiding from illusion, to be honest. Okay. Rahu in Aries, again, there'll be scandals connected with governments. We saw the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Yeah, now she's not running again. And various personal reasons for that. And Mars is in Taurus, so there'll still be some concern about land. Mars is very strong. Land, earthquakes, volcanoes. Mars is very strong in that sign. It's right in the middle of the sign. And Ketu's in the middle of Libra. So both Venus signs are somewhat afflicted right now. So this naturally affects trade to a certain extent. With Libra being afflicted, this indicates some unusual blocks or some usual problems with trade, or some secrets being kept about trade that we're not really aware of. And Mercury's in the 10th house, so this is good for communication. Still some lies or some cover-ups in communication. That's pretty obvious. Mars is still aspecting Mercury, but it's more obvious now. I mean, it's really it's tougher to hide. And finally, with this particular combination, is going to make it a little bit more difficult for to have armies essentially trying to influence governments. That's happening in various parts of the world right now. But it'll happen more in the Earth sign governments than, and it'll also happen to a lesser extent in oh gosh, in agrarian societies or societies just on the borderline of industrialization. I think China is going to go through a really rough year. Uh, just in general, just from the charts I've looked at. So is Russia, so is Ukraine. And again, I'm really not seeing any signs um, of Ukraine. I'm seeing some signs of Ukraine and Russia slowing down a little bit, but I think we're really going to have to wait until February to see any movements towards negotiation and maybe a final resolution in April. So let's look at the individual signs right now. For Aries, oh, lucky colors, fuchsia pink, uh, greens, blues, and blacks. And especially for dragons, I'm sorry, not for dragons, for rabbits, reds are considered lucky. Okay. So you're born in the year of the rabbit, wear red, at least in some part of your ensemble. It can even be in your underclothes. Okay. So it doesn't have to be visible, you just need it close to you. The first sign we look at is Aries. Aries has, I'm just shaking my tongue. Aries is Lord in the second house, so there is still a lot of attention on money. Still some boredom or impatience with life, some impatience. But Saturn is aspecting the first house right now, so the sign is going to be a little bit less pushy than it has been. It'll encourage governments to slow down and be more careful in what they impose, just in general, in Aries. And also, at least in terms of the chart, a lot of spending activity, a lot of spending for education for Aries. Relationship life is going to calm down a little bit, but essentially relationship partners will be more concerned about children, more concerned about enjoying themselves, more concerned about essentially making sure that their wants and needs are taken care of. I'm going to start the share again. All right, so 1 second. And let's see now. For Taurus has so still an expenditure pattern for this chart really until April. After April, the expenses will be spent for Aries goals. For Taurus, Mars is really obsessed with relationships right now, or Taurus is really obsessed with a relationship right now. Venus and Saturn are in the 10th house. It's obsessed with career. It's worried about health matters. That's pretty clear from the chart. Also, Taurus is one of the signs connected with the accumulation of wealth and trade. If Mars is in this particular sign, there'll be fights or arguments or insecurity about trade. And that's particularly shown by K2 being in the 6th house. So essentially, it'll have some unusual obstacles or enemies to overcome this month. Mercury is in the 8th house, some financial gains from spouses or partners. 9th house has Sun and Moon in it, so that actually gives an increase in status to the sign. And Saturn and Venus is a really good conjunction for the sign because it shows a lot of their hard work is finally paying off. Jupiter's in the 11th house, a lot of financial gains, but Rahu, you're going to have to watch out for too many expenditures again. Most of the signs have heavy expenditure patterns. That's not unusual in an inflationary environment. We're still in an inflationary environment. If you see gas prices going down, that doesn't mean inflation isn't happening elsewhere. Um, I've gone to stores, I've seen certain items that were prevalent previously, just sort of like stripped. So certain items are still tough to get or tough to keep in stock. Again, compared to the rest of the world, compared to, let's say, Sri Lanka or um, Pakistan, we're doing terrific. But uh, but those places are canaries in a coal mine, basically. Their economies aren't as well developed as the United States. They're more fragile. The people are in general poorer, and um, they've been hit with some natural catastrophes, which, um, as bad as the rainfall problem is in California, uh, Sri Lanka and Pakistan and Afghanistan have experienced far worse than what we have. So so essentially, um, this particular these particular problems. So most signs are going to have heavy expenses this month because of a variety of factors. In terms of communications and in terms of Gemini, um, a lot of communications will be either self-righteous or um, sanctimonious. Um, and but this sign overall will tend to do better this month in terms of communications, in terms of career life. People will listen to the sign much more assiduously than before. They will have relationship problems. So they will have problems with relationship partners misrepresenting themselves or being a little bit disloyal, or even relationship partners, you know, abusing or not really abusing, but being dishonest, or relationships will be damaged a little bit by this combination. That's going to be true really for about 5 months for Gemini, unfortunately. And essentially, K2 in the fifth, still some problems with very creative combination. That's very good, but not really good for problems with children. Mercury in the seventh, relationship partners will seem changeable, immature, or you may be attracted to younger than normal relationship partners, or you may be changing your mind about relationship partners. Sun and Moon are in the eighth house, so the confidence in terms of making changes in relationships are not there. And Saturn and Venus are in the ninth house, very good for financial growth, financial progress. Jupiter's in the 10th, very good. Rahu's in the 11th, so you have some fame and recognition, but Mars in the 12th, a lot of passion behind the scenes, maybe a combination for affairs, but just be careful because there could be some violence connected with those things, connected with relationships. Moon rules Cancer. The moon is in the seventh house. So again, long-term focus on relationships, strong desire to make relationships solid and lasting. And K2's in the fourth house, a lot less solidity in the home life, maybe some worry about the health of mother. Mercury's in the sixth house, so some communication problems arise for this sign, and there'll be some financial losses because of that. Sun and Moon are in the seventh house, so again, we've spoken about that already, but good partnerships, good business partnerships. Venus and Saturn are in the 11th house, or in the eighth house, excuse me. That's good for financial gains, but very slow, and it's very good for research. Ninth house has Jupiter in it, which is very good for overall luck. So this time we'll see some advancement, but it'll be very slow advancement. And finally, Rahu's in the 10th house, so there'll be some career recognition. Mars in the 11th house, some gains through physical activity um, or through political activities. And 12th house, Lord Mercury is in the 6th. So again, it can indicate losses to enemies or ambitious people. For Leo, Leo has Sun and Moon in the 6th house, so it'll feel like it has a lot of enemies this month. So this is a threat to kings and rulers. It's a temporary problem. It really won't become permanent for another couple of months. And essentially, so there'll be some struggles for rulers and also some struggles for Leos. K2's in the 3rd house, not really a bad combination for K2 for Leo. Mercury's in the 5th house, good communication skills, lucky communication skills, but also revealing some hidden information about Leo in this chart. Excuse me. Saturn and Venus are in the 7th house, so that will tend to mean that they'll have a combination of people wishing it well and also people wanting to tear it down. Saturn aspects Rahu in this chart, not really a good combination. That means luck tends to get spoiled or tends to get, so the illusion of luck tends to get taken away. Mars is in the 10th house. This sign will find itself fighting a lot over the next month, pretty much as a career. For Virgos have Jupiter in the 7th. It'll bring more partnerships, better partnerships, more fruitful partnerships, educational partnerships. Mercury in the 4th house, a lot of gain in status, especially through communications. Mars aspecting that Mercury, though, there'll be some lies told by relationship partners or some misrepresentations told by relationship partners. K2's in the 2nd. This sign will have difficulty communicating. To be honest with you, it'll make a lot of mistakes, but those will be recoverable. Saturn and Venus are in the 6th house, so this will give increased financial benefit, but really through hard work. Jupiter in the 7th is very good for this sign. It makes it basically lucky. Rahu's in the 8th. A lot of obsession with learning secrets or behind the facts. Mars in the 9th. If you want to progress, you'll have to fight. This sign really doesn't like to fight that much, but if you want to progress, you'll have to fight. You'll have to stand up for yourself. And again, the educational acquisition of the sign will be very much in demand. Okay, so we have 4 pretty strong planets. Let's see what Jupiter is. Actually, around 5 pretty strong planets right now. Planets are like in the middle of signs. Mercury, Jupiter, Rahu, Ketu, and Mars. So those planets are all manifesting fully right now. Sun and Moon change signs pretty frequently. Moon is at 19 degrees, so I really don't count that. Within about 2 weeks, Venus will be in the middle of a sign, and that'll make Venus more prominent. So any of you waiting for romantic involvements, go for it when Venus is in the middle of a sign, but just be cautious about relationship issues because of Venus's conjunction with Saturn, number 1, and number 2, so much of the Mars affliction is still showing up in the chart, which we've spoken about in previous broadcasts. K2 is in Libra, Rahu's in Aries. The combination of K2 in the 1st house and Venus and Saturn in the 5th house tends to give a certain amount of luck to the sign. Saturn's considered the best planet for this particular rising sign. Venus is the lord of Libra, and so you should see unexpected leaps or gains for this sign. The only problem is with this particular combination is this K2 will leave this sign open to so many possibilities. You'll have a lot of trouble deciding which direction to go into. So there's a possibility of overcommitting or overextending yourself. But I recommend you do it because a lot of these opportunities come around, basically once in a lifetime, and you should just explore them, see if you can handle them all. Mercury's in the third house. This sign's going to be very diplomatic, and Jupiter's in the sixth. Enemies will be well-intentioned, but still enemies. So just be careful about people who give you sage advice. It's not really, they're not really your friends. Mars is in the eighth. Again, you have to watch out for relationship problems with this combination. That'll pass within about a month and a half. And Rahu's in the seventh house. So be careful about being attracted to glamour versus substance in relationships. Career life actually looks good for the sign. So you'll see career life and some gains for the sign this month. For Scorpio, we have, running out of time here. For Scorpio, we have Mercury in the second house, so communications will be better. Sun and Moon are in the third house, so there'll be a strong desire for gains, but those will be slowed down by Venus, by relationship partners, and also by Venus being, and also by Saturn being in the fourth house. So there'll be slow but steady gains in career. Don't be upset if things don't happen quickly. Jupiter's in the fifth house. This is not a bad placement. Mars is in the seventh house. So again, a lot of focus on relationship life. Overall, a lucky month for Scorpio, but slow moving. For Sagittarius, there's a lot of communication with Sagittarius right now, a lot of attention on Sagittarius, especially on the financial aspect of Sagittarius. So essentially, there'll be a lot of accentuation of learning, a lot of accentuation of career, and a lot of discussion about career life and also governance. Saturn and Venus are in the third house, aspecting Rahu. So again, politics will become sort of a focus for the sign over the next few months, and lawsuits will be possible for the sign over the next few months. Ketu's in the 11th house, so you can't trust your friends. And again, this is going to be true until November. For Capricorn, I missed this last week. For Capricorn, Sun and Moon are in the first house. Very good for pulling up hidden allies and also long-term relationships, developing long-term relationships with people. Saturn's in the second house of money along with Venus, so this should be a good money month or money week for the sign. Jupiter's in the third house, good for investments. Rahu's in the fourth. There's a strong lack of security for the sign right now. So there'll be a lot of focus on it in financial matters. Mars is in the fifth house. Children will be a little bit rebellious. And Ketu's in the 10th house. So again, still not a lot of recognition for career life, but that'll improve over the next few weeks. Mercury's in the 12th house. So again, watch out for spending patterns. For Aquarius, Saturn's in the first house, along with Venus. This forms a Raj Yoga, which is a special combination of planets. It's a lucky combination for Aquarius. So this sign will attain some status or some financial benefit this month. Jupiter's in the second house. Money will tend to come in over the next few weeks. Rahu's in the third. It's not afraid to try new things. Mars is in the fourth. Some problems with relationship partners over new ambitions. Ketu's in the ninth. Unusual learning activities, so unexpected insights. And Mercury's in the 11th house, so that's good for financial gains. Again, watch out for relationship partners, in particular, spending too much. Finally, Pisces. If we go to Pisces, Jupiter's in the first house. That's a good combination. That's a Hamsa Yoga. And Mercury is in the 10th. By the way, for Aquarius, if you're thinking about political office, it might be a good time to think about that, but that's your decision. Jupiter's in the first house for Pisces. Rahu's in the second, so some concern about money, some desire for land or new assets. Ketu's in the 8th house, so there'll be some blocks from relationship partners because of that. Interest. Mercury's in the 10th house, a lot of interest in writing and career development, and Sun and Moon are in the 11th house, so that should give some increased financial benefit to the sign. But again, you're going to have to watch out for spending a lot. There are a lot of combinations for over expenditures in this chart. Now let's go to the time and space chart. I don't have a lot of time to look at this. Unfortunately, I didn't leave myself a lot of time. All right, so again, we have some problems. A lot more communications over Hawaii and into Western Canada. And we're looking at some anxiety about environmental conditions that shows up over California. And it looks like increased government control up through Montana, through Idaho and California and Wyoming. Also, a lot of governmental disputes in southwestern United States, Mexico, and a lot more communications coming from Texas and Mexico over the next few months, over the next few weeks, and some fights, some possibility of fights or violence going up through the central United States. Also, political conflict in this region in general. So it's not necessarily a Carrie Lake situation, but it looks like a lot of arguments. If we go to Western South America, is still in trouble, and this was Chile, Peru, Argentina, um, uh, Venezuela. A lot of political upheaval throughout South America. Probably more political violence and more governmental control in Brazil, to be truthful. So the Brazilian government's going to really crack down a lot on people. The moon is going over, yeah, so there'll be a lot of attention on that. Iceland has a Venus-Saturn line going over, so that may affect the economy of Iceland. And there's definitely a descending line going through Mercury, going through England, Ireland, Spain, France, North Africa, all the way down through Southeast Africa, and a Jupiter line. So essentially what you're going to see is more conservative governments popping up in Central Europe, more establishment governments popping up in Central Europe, and I think more disputes about more nationalistic tendencies popping up in that part of the world. Italy is certainly in the center of that, but it's true also in Germany and Norway and Sweden. We have some activity. I'm trying to differentiate the line here. Some more government control, some more efforts at government control in Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Egypt. And we're going to be hearing a lot more about those parts of the world. Some more uprisings in Iran or some more protests in Iran. Moon going through even some changes in local government in Iran, it looks like. And again, water damage shows up in Pakistan, and violence in Sri Lanka, but also in central India, all the way down through pretty much through Sri Lanka. If we go over here, we see some big problems developing in terms of orthodoxy in Russia and the Ukraine. By the way, going over here, there'll still be some frustration in resolving the Ukraine issues, just given this cluster of planetary activity over here. Finally, let's go over here. Some economic panic in Australia. That'll be affecting the rest of the world. Some disputes, some violence in Eastern Australia. New Zealand is largely unaffected, but again, they're going to be a little bit depressed or a little bit upset about changes in rulership. But China, again, China is going to become much more dogmatic over the coming year, much more controlling, much more orthodox, and now set up kind of a tension. Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
how you doing?
I'm finishing my program. All right. Yeah, I'll be in a second.
Bye.
All right, and so all right, and so we have this Rahu line hitting over Japan, and that worries me just a little bit, and also Borneo, and so this part of the world, to me, these parts of the world right here, also right over Washington D.C., we have this really strong Jupiter line, and so this is really going to be a challenge of orthodoxy over unorthodoxy. You needed change versus resistance to change in China, Europe, the United States, Eastern United States, and even the Western United States, and even into Brazil and South America. So there's really no part of the world that's untouched by this. Um, uh, I haven't focused as much as I wanted to on Africa and Europe, but it looks like there are big changes coming there too. So that's it for this week. I have to run. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great week. And I love you all. Thank you very much for your patience, and see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone. I love you all. More interviews coming.